Okay, what's happened to National's promise to cut the public service? It just grew another 1,000 jobs in 3 months, almost 1,000 jobs in 3 months.
It's the Slam Dunk.
Okay, so if National can't cut numbers now in the public service, then how on earth will it cut 8,200 later? Well, it's actually 9,000 now. The latest public service numbers expose a real problem for National that is becoming harder and harder to explain away. It's all very well for Nicola Willis to attack the credibility of Labor, but National's big talk on cutting costs and cutting the public service looks to be in tatters. Rather than reduce the size of the state, it's actually blowing out again. Almost 1,000 more jobs added to the core public service in just the last 3 months, in just one quarter. It's astonishing. As they were preparing the budget, with the big news to cut staff, to cut 8,200 public servants, they were actually busy hiring staff. They were hiring staff, so they're doing one thing, promising another, weren't they? As we all know, the government promised to cut 8,200 public servants, and those reductions are projected to take time and will be overtime. But here's the question that nobody seems willing to ask. If the public service is growing now, then how exactly is it going to be 8,200 smaller in the future? Because the trend is heading in the wrong direction. The latest figures show the public service workforce increased from 63,657, that's full-time equivalents, to 64,535 full-time equivalents in the March quarter alone. That's an increase of 878 bureaucrats in just 3 months, 878. So instead of actually moving them off the work and moving them towards a smaller public service, this is what's happened. We're getting actually a larger one under National. 800 odd new public servants in just 3 months. Instead of reductions, we're seeing expansions. And that matters because the government's fiscal strategy relies heavily on future workforce reductions. It's all tied to this. They're getting to surplus because of this. Now, the budget assumes around 8,200 fewer public sector jobs over the coming years, although attrition, efficiencies, technology, that all will be taken into account as well. And restraint in hiring, of course, is big too. It's a really big number. 8,200 is even a bigger number when you look at the fact they've just added 1,000 in 3 months. But every quarter that the bureaucracy grows instead of shrinks makes the target look much, much further away and harder to achieve. Much harder to achieve. The Ministry of Education provides a perfect example of all this. It added 341 staff in just 3 months. 341. It's almost that's about 4 a day. That's a 9% increase. The total workforce now sits at 4,176 staff. They're still dramatically above the roughly 2,700 staff level that National repeatedly pointed to before the election as evidence of how much the bureaucracy had expanded. So they're no better off and they're no better than Labor. Here's the issue. Every new hire today becomes another position that eventually has to disappear if those future reduction targets are going to be met. And National has to meet them because the budget relies on it. The surplus in 28-29 relies on it. The government's effectively running up the down escalator. Right, they're going up there and it's coming down. Trying to go down while continuing to step up, it's impossible. Then there's the delicious irony of the Ministry for Regulation. This is David Seymour's ministry. The ministry created to reduce regulation and bureaucracy increased its own staffing by, wait for it, 11.6%. The bureaucracy cutting ministry is growing faster than most of the bureaucracy it's supposed to be cutting. You couldn't script this stuff. Now, let's be fair, okay? Cutting government is hard. Education ministry, lots of reforms going on there with the minister, so it's hard. You need staff to push all that through, right? But governments discover how hard it is the moment they move from opposition into government, into office. Every department argues that its staff are essential. Can't cut mine, says Winston. Every minister fears being blamed for service failures, so they keep the staff there. Every public service chief executive can produce 100 reasons why cuts should happen somewhere else. And that's why governments so often talk tough, but don't govern tough. But voters are entitled to ask whether the government's future workforce assumptions are realistic. Personally, I think the 8,200 is heroic, and they haven't shown anywhere near the bottle to do this so far. And the numbers just continue to climb. They haven't got the backbone to do this, and they're not doing it now, so why would they do it in the future? It's now gone to 9,000 staff they need to get rid of, not 8,200, because right now the evidence points the other way, right? If you want to reduce staffing by 8,200 over time, you don't normally start by adding another 1,000, in a single quarter. If you want to shrink bureaucracy, you don't normally watch the Ministry of Education hire the equivalent of 3 full-time staff every day for 3 months, or 3.5 staff every day for 3 months, every day for 3 months. And if you want the public to believe your long-term projections, the short-term numbers need to at least point in the same direction. If we're heading over there, long term, then why are we heading over there short term? At the moment, they don't match. The concern of Nicola Willis isn't that the 8,200 figure hasn't happened yet. The concern is that every new set of workforce data makes it look less achievable and further away. The government keeps talking about a leaner public service tomorrow. The public service keeps getting bigger today. And sooner or later, the two stories collide because promises about the future are only believable when the numbers in the present are moving in the same direction, and they're not. Right now, they're completely not. And that leaves National facing an uncomfortable question. If the bureaucracy is still growing after nearly 3 years in office, then why should voters believe it's suddenly going to shrink by 8,200 jobs after the election? And it's not 8,200, it's now 9,000 and counting. Then what? 10,000? Then what? National needs to freeze job growth if it's serious. And if it's not serious, then its budget isn't worth the paper it's written on.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
Okay, that's us, folks. Thanks so much for joining us. Thank you for your feedback. And remember, life is no just rehearsal, no curtain raiser. We live in one of the best places on earth. Get out and enjoy it. Have some fun. Also, if you can subscribe to keep us here, please do so. Text my name, Duncan, to 3598. I'll flick you a link and you get all the extra content out on a Friday, plus my newsletter as well. The reason we ask you to do this is because it's tough putting these podcasts together. It costs money, there are plenty of costs involved, and it's hard to get the big corporates on board, especially election year. So it's through your individual subscriptions that we remain here. So thank you so much. We appreciate it. Regan, thank you, sir. Willie, thank you, sir. We'll do it all again tomorrow. Take care, folks. Ta-da.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.